Good. Hello, everybody. My name is Matthias, and I'm hosting this session together with my colleague Jude and another person, Robin Falk, from customer Valueadded, and it's going to be about spare part management and aftermarket commerce. Sorry. So we're going to talk through a few aspects of this. We're going to start a little bit with some trends within the aftermarket and spare part sales and spare part management. Of course, the end, what to achieve in the business within the aftermarket. Then we'll dig in a little bit to what's needed on the back end, and then we'll round off with a real case from customer Valueadded within farming. So this will be a little agenda we'll have now, the coming roughly 30 minutes. So the speakers today, it's me, Matthias, and I'm one of the founders of the company Significant. We specialize in aftermarket e-commerce and spare part management. It's my colleague Rudy Bröke, who is VP Software Development within the company. And then we'll round off with Robin Falk, Director of Business Support at Valueadded, a manufacturer within farming. So a little bit first here on the history of spare part management and aftermarket information on the web. And this is a little bit of history of the company, but it's also a little bit of history of how the business has developed. And it, of course, the base of aftermarket information and service information is, of course, to present the needed information to the end user so they find the right parts. Some time ago, it was some kind of service catalog containing parts, wear parts, documentation needed to keep a product up and going. But as it evolved, it has rather become the need of an aftermarket PIM, where all information and all content from various sources within a company are unified into a kind of a single database to ensure that things are in line and that spare part managements and as well as the documentation fit together. Same information in all sources need to go together in one database to ensure good quality. And of course, this ends up with selling spare parts over the web. And without a proper order in the database and a catalog to build upon, the e-commerce for spare parts could be quite hard. So this is kind of the last step of it. There are a few trends within the aftermarket, and when it comes to spare part management, selling spare parts, and the first one here is maybe not a trend, but rather a fact: intelligent search. For manufacturers with a lot of spare parts and a lot of information, finding the right part is really important. You need to fit into the machine you have. And that can be done in quite many ways, but it goes down to a few important areas. One is to be able to search Google style, context sensitive, and also with attributes. Maybe it's a very old product, still a customer needs to find the right part for that particular product. But it's also about presenting the information so that users, possibly not users with so much knowledge about the manufacturer, just search in Google's and he wants to find the part. So it's also about Google optimization and ensuring that the relevant search terms are available on the internet for Google and other search engines to call and find the information. It's about personalization, and here it's trying to understand the customer, what install base do they have, what information are they in need of, and once you actually find a spare part, what other information is needed. And this personalization area is a way to build a stronger selling point as compared to let's say third-party competitors of spare parts. So we, in previous presentation, we talked a lot about pricing compared to other vendors of spare parts. It's also about presenting information that is needed for a user or a customer to do the service, and personalization helps in that. Multi-channel, that's something which is also quite growing at the moment. And that refers to not only presenting spare part information on the homepage of yours. It could be that you have a partner network and the partner sells spare parts, your spare parts also. So multi-channel platform, that's pretty much just about ensuring that the right information is distributed to the right recipients and they in turn can distribute further. not using screen scraping and other methodologies that partners otherwise could go ahead and do. Warranty feedback, of course, that's something that people expect nowadays. If you go and buy something in a traditional web shop, you of course expect an easy return if needed. That also goes for spare parts and aftermarket service. As maintained, that's an area which for some manufacturers are quite tricky to handle, for others quite easy. And it is pretty much throughout the life of a complex product, the product may be changed many times, serviced of course, but also rebuilt. And in some cases, it can be tracked to ensure that spare parts also fit in the changed product. So keeping track of how the product is maintained and changed throughout its life cycle could, at least for some manufacturers, be extremely important. And this is a trend trying to tackle this area. And last one, of course, user experience in finding spare parts. And that also is driven from the personal view. If you go and do some shopping on the e-commerce side, you have an expectation of how things should look like and how it should work. So when you purchase a spare part, the expectation is pretty much the same. So it has to be handled very smoothly. It must be easy to use. So what is to be achieved here really is, of course, to sell spare parts, possibly also to compete with other vendors of spare parts if your business is like that. At the end, it is about ensuring the uptime of your product and the quality of the product, and that leads to customer satisfaction of good support. And this good support, of course, is essential, because if a thing breaks down, it's an old thing, and you actually do find a spare part, the customer will be happy. And when it's time to purchase a new product, well, likely you'll be the one to get the order. It comes, of course, to optimizing the service organization. It could be producing information more efficiently, but it could also be ensuring that service staff and field service organizations have the exact right information for the task they're about to go out and carry out. And the last piece, of course, multi-channel strategy and syndication of product information is something which is important to handle in a spare part management solution. And I'm going to talk through quickly a few examples of how it could look like also. Of course, it's at the bottom end, the way to find a spare part is to find the product and exploded views, things like that, to be able to identify the exact right part. But on top of that, public prices, market-dependent prices needs to be displayed. Complex hierarchies needs to be handled, and of course some kind of B2B e-commerce, or possibly to B2C or B2C e-commerce for the spare parts. And normally that will be carried out with multiple warehouses. So this is a screenshot from Valueadded, which we'll talk a little bit further down the line here. But apart from the basics, it also becomes a little bit more. So it could be customer unique prices. So if you sell throughout a partner network, of course, the partner needs to get their unique prices, or if it's a major customer. When it comes to spare parts, you'll also need to handle supersessions, replacement chains for old products, let's say 10-year-old, in this case, front loader for a tractor. The parts on that one may be discontinued and replaced by another one, and by a third one, and so on. So it'd be quite long supersession chains. Due to that, sometimes also, especially if you're in the business that you sell things that should look okay, maybe you have colors on your machines, and the customer has an old product with a which is colored black, but the specific part you need to replace is not available in black anymore, but you have a blue one and a red one. Presenting optional parts which are 100% compatible is something which is also really important when it comes to the aftermarket business. Featured parts is also something which is important, but this is a two-way thing, and it could be trying to upsell something. You want to say sell something which is better, but it's also something which could be used to help the customer to do the service. Maybe a part is broken, but if you change it, you know that it'll cover will be broken in the changing process. So when you buy the part, you also need to buy the cover and a specific tool to do the job. So featured parts could also be helpful in, yes, doing the job and ensuring the customer gets happy at the end. So those are typical add-on features needed within the aftermarket, which needs to be handled also. At the end, also, you have service professionals doing a job. So maybe they need to have instructions to service something. And if you have a complex product, which possibly is built to order, then the service instructions could be quite complex. You're going out, in this case, to a Scania truck, and doing a standard operation could actually differ from one truck to another, even though it's the same model. Yes, because it's built to order. So because of that, you need to keep track of every single produced unit and service instructions unique to that particular truck. And the recipients of this information in this case would be field service and workshop. And to do it, of course, it's controlled. You need a certain amount of, let's say, prepared spare parts for a service operation, but also standard times for the operation. Maybe we say it's going to take 2 hours to do this, and we're going to charge this and this amount for going out to you and fixing it. So you need not only to handle the spare parts, but also the corresponding instructions in a package to allow your service staff and field service and workshops to work in an efficient manner. And all this information needs to belong together in a little bit of a joint database. So saying that, I hand over to my colleague, Ruud Breukeren, to talk a little bit on the back end instead. Ruud, please go ahead.
Thank you, Matthias. Yes, so Matthias has shown what you can achieve when you want to digitalize your aftermarket services. But what is required? What is behind this? And I think we heard this already earlier today. It's a lot about data. Data is key. Data is the key competitive weapon of an OEM to be able to charge higher prices, for instance, for their parts. And we also heard that the data is there. There are a lot of data sources. You have your marketing department, you have your engineering, you have your manufacturing, you have your factories, you have the part manufacturers. So a lot of data is there. And what we do from Significant is help our customers to unify and consolidate this information into one very smart information model, and to enrich that information so that this information can support all the aftermarket processes. So you have to, in the first instance, you have the sales, but then you have the use of the equipment. You have the repair, the maintenance, recovery, warranty, returns. And you have different applications for that. You have workshop service applications, reseller portals, your own web shop, spare parts e-commerce. So what we do is consolidate, unify all this information into one product information management system and publish it to all these channels that you have. Next slide, please, Matthias.
There we go.
And we also noticed that the original sales of a machine or equipment is something completely different than when a service engagement is being needed. Then a service engagement, you suddenly have a specific machine and you want to know for 100% sure that the part you are using is exactly the part that fits in that machine. So you will probably need to be able to navigate through the machine and find it in a part assembly. And you will want to be able to choose maybe an original part or another part. So you need to have these references between the information. So all the information that we have put into the system shall also be referenced. We shall be able to create kits and multi-packs. We will have to know when parts are replaced. So all these types of information is what differs the aftermarket from the original market of selling the goods. And also, this will help us to build further on our data. We not only now have the data of the machines that we have built the last 30 years, but we also know that this specific customer has bought this part, not just this part. We know where this customer has clicked, in what machine it has, for what machine it has been bought, and from what exploded fuel they were looking at. So we are adding statistics to the systems, and we can use the statistics to do cross sales and upsales of parts. And we can also say to the user that, okay, you're interested in this part, here is the manual and here's the way to repair it, but by the way, do you have this tool? And if not, you can buy it here. So here you have the tool. So this is really a way of be proactive and sell more parts, but so sell also more additional tools and accessories. Next slide, please, Matthias. So in the end, the data model, the smart information model that we're building will help you to whatever task you are on, for whatever specific individual machine and what user you are for what organization. We can make sure that you get the relevant information and only the relevant information. And then we can provide it to any application system or device that is useful for the task that you currently are working on. And this sounds very good. And I think the best way to end the series of presentations today is to actually listen to a real customer, a real case. So we'd like to introduce Robin Falk, Director Business Support of Valueadded, and he will introduce himself and his company and what he has done with his company with the help of Significant.
Thank you. I will do my best to explain that. So I will share my screen. Visible?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi everyone, my name is Robin Falk, working for a company called Valueadded Group, and I will talk a little bit about the journey we are on when it comes to the digitalization of our aftermarket information and aftermarket business. So we'll start a little bit with some information about our company, which might not be recognized by all of you. So we are a manufacturing company within the agricultural business. So we provide machinery for farmers in many parts of the world. Our focus is tillage, soil preparation, prepare the soil before seeding. And we also offer products to actually do the seeding or drilling and planting of crops. Some examples of our products and some of the challenges connected to the aftermarket and to spare parts. Valueadded has, since the beginning, about 60 years ago, been very focused on innovation, very focused on making the farmers work easier and more efficient by technical innovation, which was, of course, great, but a lot of ideas and a lot of focus on the products has, in some cases, maybe historically at least, not put so much focus on what will happen when the products are actually used. We have a quite wide product range with relatively low volumes and quite a high change frequency, at least on the components level. For our customers and our users, the uptime or the availability of time to use the machines are very important. The season is quite short in many parts of the world, so it's very important from a cost perspective and further down the line from getting good crops and good harvest and getting a good income. And we also have machines that last for a quite long period of time, which also puts a lot of demands on the aftermarket side of our business. We operate and sell our products in mainly, I would say, Europe, including the CIS countries, North America, and Australia, New Zealand. We do some business in other parts of the world, but that's our main focus. Have 4 manufacturing sites, 2 in Sweden, 1 in Canada and 1 in the US, and sell through our own companies and representatives in many markets and also partners. We're a family-owned company, which create good opportunities for stability and future growth, and that are prepared to invest in the future. So I will try to connect our aftermarket journey to our values and principles that we focus on, and our core values are to be innovative, reliable, and accessible. And I've highlighted some of our principles as well, where relation and support are very important for us to keep our customers happy for many years after they purchase our products. As I said, the aftermarket side has maybe not historically been the main focus of Väderstad, but that, as it was mentioned by a few of the other speakers before, as the whole industry, we have transformed from spare parts being something that you provide to realizing that this is something you can sell and make good money on, and to now see it as a very important element of selling the next machine to the farmer by creating good relation, good support, actually extending the lifetime of the machine or improving the result that the machine can perform for the farmer. And spare part is of course important to keep the machine running. In our case, what we call wear parts is maybe even more important, because that is what doing the job in the soil. And they are supposed to be replaced as you run the machine. So it's a very important part of our business. And as also been mentioned before, there are of course competitors in supplying these wear parts, spare parts as well, but especially wear parts to our machines. And the discussions we've had is what value can we as an OEM or as the manufacturer actually contribute? Price, yeah, maybe, but that is not really our strategy to compete on price and to try to gain market share on price. We aim to have the correct price, I guess you could say. So that was a little bit out. Supply and availability, of course, super important, and we need to be good enough on that side, of course. But compared to some of our competitors, which can only choose to market some of the parts or some of the assortment, and maybe offer a lot of other things that the farmer needs, it's hard to say that that will be our main competitive advantage. So what we try to focus on and what is making us unique is the knowledge we have, the information we have about the products, and the parts and how they can contribute to the farmer. And the challenge has been historically, and we are taking steps, and there are more to do, is how will we give that information to the farmer and to our sales partners. So if we go back a few years in time, we had quite a few challenges regarding this connected to the values. If we talk about innovative and accessible, it was very hard to find the information that the farmer needed and our sales partners or service partners needed. Quite, yeah, not maybe super modern ways of distributing the information. Printed books, PDFs, quite a few languages, even if you saw the map where we work in quite a few markets. We had an online catalog, but we had limited control and development possibilities of that. Looking that we should be a reliable partner, and we focus on the relation and support. The data quality was poor. There were connections to, for example, engineering data, but there were no real connections. So it was based on that data, but there was manual update looking at engineering data and creating the spare part data. And we had a challenge to keep it updated during our product development. So based on that, we initiated this journey, and I'm going to talk about one of the projects we have done. The purpose of that was to improve the quality and efficiency within the aftermarket information and also the order handling by offering an online platform. And the goal, of course, was to increase the service level, and by that also the quality of the usability and also the machine quality to customers, and increase sales both on the parts but also for the next machine that the farmer needs to buy or the customer needs to buy. We had quite a few deliverables. I will not talk about all of them, but the main ones was to overcome the challenges we had. Easy access to data, correct data, and also very important to make it scalable for the future, for future needs. Some of the main project challenges was, of course, communication and acceptance. Our industry is maybe not as far along when it comes to digitalization and then compared to other industries. Master data, and we'll talk about data a lot today, and that was a challenge. And the big part of the product was actually to do a lot of data conversion and consolidation to be able to make sure that we could give the information in a good way. And today we offer this system for both farmer and users to dealers to give information and to place orders. And we create the data in our PLM system based on engineering bill of materials to create service bill of materials. And we use the actual CAD drawings from the R&D department to do our illustration. There's been a lot of discussions or information about trends and the future, and this is what Valueadded see right now, and what we need to focus on even more moving forward. Customer user experience, very important, and the more everyone is getting more used to finding information online and digitally, this is getting more and more important. And also that you have easy access to relevant information. There's so much information to find, so you need to find the correct one. It needs to be personalized, in our case usually connected to the exact machine that the user is having, but also more information, more knowledge, and more training available. We need also to move further when it comes to not only this is the part you need, but also telling the reasons why this is the best part available for your machine, especially on the wear part side. Our market is quite late into service and sales of service, but that is starting, and that is also something we need to find ways of offering to the customers. But they have talked about the multi-channel strategy and business models. One of our challenges, we have a lot of sales partners. How should we offer information, data to them, and find business models that work, for example, in an e-commerce situation with customer. short information about our company and the journey we have been on and are still in, hopefully connected to some of the information that Matthias and Ruth said, and also some of the other speakers today. Thanks.
Thank you, and thank you, Robin. And if you can stop sharing your screen, Robin, that would be, thank you. There you are, I see you. Thank you for that insightful presentation. And obviously, as you say, Robin, I think it's a fair point that all the future focuses that you had listed there is indeed something that we will cover and have covered already in this session. I think Matthias and Ruth, did you want to sum this up? I jumped in because I couldn't hear any one of you. You're still muted somehow.
Matthias, you're muted.
As always.
Got muted. Yes, here we go.
There.
As always. Yeah, I would like to say thank you to Robin. It was nice of you hearing you speak, and I think we just sum it up with the challenges and the benefits, and the challenge, of course, is the expectations of the end users, how they find information, how they Google, and what they expect to see, and how that actually affects the strategies of the OEMs. And I think Robin summed it up quite well at the end, saying these are our future challenges. And I think that's our experience from not only Väderstad, but pretty much from all our customers. They all face the exact same situation. Some has come a little bit further, others are lacking behind a little bit, but they're all pretty much in the same situation. So I think it's quite interesting. So it was a good sum up. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing. As I said, I would like to invite all my previous speakers into the panel again. Alex, Andy, Tim, Robert, if you want to stay around, of course. And we should then deep dive a little bit into some of the trends we've been discussing throughout the day. I will then finish this day with another recording on actually how to run spare parts in the digital domain. But since it's pre-recorded, I wanted to leverage the fact that we're all collected in one space and pick your brains about certain trends, maybe in that sense. And I named the panel The Future of Spare Parts in order to stay sustainable and profitable. Of course, this can have many meanings. But one of the things that I want to just throw out there, and the panel is welcome to jump in here with your opinions, is there a new normal, or are we just now bluntly aware of how fragile we are? Anyone wants to take that one?
Maybe I can jump in. From our perspective, what I see is from what our customers are telling us, this is getting the new normal for them. Mm-hmm. That they have to compete against, I would say, market players who they were not aware of before. Mm-hmm. And they need to have more market insights. They need to have more technology on their side. And also, if I might reflect from what I have heard, also from significant things are getting more complex, and machine manufacturers, they could benefit a lot of having their data at the right place. So having their processes in place, having their market information in place, and having their market feedback from what is installed in the field.
Mm.
Maybe one follow-up here. What I found really interesting is that what's a positive trend is that our customers really told us that the significance or the standing of the service team and specifically of the spare parts unit increased over the crisis, because you weren't really selling new machinery. But of course, your machines that are in the field, you still need to do service. You could still sell spare parts. And that's why suddenly the leaders of the companies also realized, wow, this is a very big lever for us, which now helps the service managers and the VPs of service and whatever to actually finance investments in this business unit and to make it even more profitable and more sustainable in the long run. So I guess this is a very positive trend on that note.
Agreed,
Yeah.
and indeed. And I think I see you nodding your head here, Matthias. I know in Sweden, we know from the old CEO of ABB, Percy Barnevik, in the 70s, something he was on about the aftermarket function and the profitability and shifting from a product manufacturer into service manufacturer. So it's interesting that we now, what, 40 years later, are still, you know, enhancing the function, and once again appreciating them, if I should say so. But I guess this has to do with the proactiveness that the manufacturers want to sort of accomplish, rather than the break fix model and now predictive or proactive. I guess the commerce aspect ties into that as well, doesn't it?
Definitely, I would say so. As Market Pilot mentioned, you need to have a good control of the competitors' pricing and so on. But when it comes to the commerce side, you also need to have the tool to present yourself. And since, as Robin said, you don't want to compete with price, you need to compete with something different. And what is that? That is data. So you need to use your data, your knowledge, and present it in a way that you get the advantage you actually do have already. And that is the commerce side of it, and presenting it. And that's a strong trend, yes, definitely the last few years.
And I think, Andy, you were touching upon the whole sort of end-to-end sort of transparency in the modeling there. I mean, from on-process point of view, do you see, because also, let's be honest, customer experience or customer just expectations have also changed. I mean, we got, of course, you know, tested a bit during the pandemic in what we can deliver and how far and quick we can shift our business models. But on the other hand, customer expectation is that you're supposed to be able to give service 24/7, right?
Oh yes. I mean, when you've gotten your son's birthday, you place an order of an online Lego, and you have it on your doorstep the day after. That sets the expectation. So now something breaks down on your farming equipment, you go to harvest the day after. You expect the new wear part to be there. It needs to be there straight away. And it's the same thing. It kind of spills over the private to the B2B.
Yeah, and I think the trend that Andy also mentioned from product sales to services, to have products as a service, also of course gives an incentive to the OEMs or the service providers to maintain and have a good aftermarket. So
Lisa, going back to your original point about, is this the new normal, or are we just going to go back to something different again? I think, in short, certainly from our perspective as a sort of more of a technology provider and so on, I think a lot of the trends were already happening. A lot of what we now see as the new normal, or the normal, were already happening. But what did happen in the last year and a half was, if you like, it was supercharged. It was suddenly, you know, what is it called? A catalyst was put in the mixing pot.
Yeah, the Tasmanian devil.
The rather horrid one, admittedly, but it basically fast-tracked and supercharged the trends that were already happening. So whilst I think the current normal may settle down to something slightly different to what it is now, I don't think it'll go back to what it was originally, because it was already on a path of change. For example, the things that were just mentioned by my other colleagues here around the focus on data, the focus on customer experience, and in some cases digital customer experiences and so on. These are all here with us to stay, I think, for the forthcoming future.
And I think that, sorry, Lisa, just one more point. Yeah. Adding to what Andy said, I think having this intelligence from all different perspectives really helps the manufacturers to create a value proposition that really helps them retaining their customers for a longer time. Because I think it's really important to move away from this transactional selling mode that we had in the past, and really making it to a more long-term relationship. And pricing is only one aspect that can help you here. You need this information simply to understand where you're at in comparison to the market. But then you have all these other aspects that you need. You need to understand what is your lead time in comparison to the market, for example. And that's, I think, all of these points, they just help you build confidence. And confidence is what will increase what will improve the relationship really with your customer. If he is confident that you are really the best partner for the machine and whatever comes with it. I think this is key for being successful in the spare parts and wider service area.
And I think you're right there. And I think you're touching upon something very important, is that it's not only the pricing or maybe the data insights, it's the whole service strategy, right? And parts is it's a money-making one, but it's not the only part of your service offering in that sense, or the only segment. And I think Robin showed that very well, that it's also about, you know, the perceived customer experience, the whole sort of, if you can't compete on price, which many OEMs cannot, let's be honest, it's the value-added services about using the original equipment, right? And what kind of uptime can the OEM give me via the parts that I'm purchasing from them, and so forth. I don't know, Robin, if you want to chip in there, if you look at your future strategies there in terms of business strategy and the service operation as a whole, where I guess parts is it's one pillar, but it's not everything.
Oh, and I think there's a lot of things that needs to be in that offering.
Yeah.
Knowledge for us is very important. If we can charge for knowledge or not, but at least it's very important for the total customer experience. Of course, the actual parts that are needed and the services that are needed, both on how to use our machinery, but also how to maintain and repair them. So there's many different parts that needs to be fulfilled according to the customer expectations, if they for them to see us, for example, as a good partner and supplier for the future.
And I think we all touch upon the importance of the data-driven decision making in terms of optimizing your parts function. I think it has been tied into everybody's presentation today, and how that is the sort of requirement for moving towards a predictive model, of course. Now I'm going to be even more than complicated and ask, but that also requires that you have insights into your installed base, inventory, warehouse. Now we're speaking about complex models where you do have, that's a fact, obsolete machinery and so forth that you can't really connect. But I guess and that's normally something that manufacturers brings to the table in terms of as a challenge. What would you say when they say that? Is it better to measure the data you can, even though you might take decisions that are not full scale, or should you use other sort of combinations in terms of strategy to be able to make wise decisions there?
Can I jump in there?
Of course.
I think there are, luckily, the technology envelope constantly evolves. If you were to ask that question just a couple of years ago, you're right, it would have been really complicated, or more complicated than it is now. But the sort of technologies that are out there now that allows you to consolidate maybe what little data you have, but importantly start to augment that data intelligently, perhaps with other data from other sources, but having that technology infrastructure that allows you to do that really, really simply is stuff that wasn't around just 2 years ago. So I think things are getting easier. And as everyone has said, and as rightly you pointed out, it all starts with that data infrastructure platform. And of course, different people have different sources of that data, some more than others. But yeah, the technology can go a long way to helping augment that data where it doesn't exist, and cleaning it and putting it in the right order. For us, it's around customer experience and so on.
I think this is very relevant that you have the data platform, but also from a business point of view to just have a clear roadmap or a clear strategy how to tackle these different areas. Because what we see from our customers is most of them are aware that they need to digitize their services, that they need to improve their customer relationships and service, for example, and they have some sort of roadmap, and then they have all these different building blocks within these roadmaps. And in this case, luckily for us, price is one of the value pools that is really the quickest to tap into and to realize. So we're usually in the beginning of that journey, but then of course our customers benefit from the intelligence here, and they see, hey, digitization, this can actually work. We saw it in the case of price intelligence, and suddenly they get, I don't know, they kind of get the hang of it and start boosting more projects because they see what the value actually is for the business. So we've seen this with multiple customers now who had the pricing or who installed MarkPilot first, but then moved on in their service roadmap because pricing is just this small component, really.
And I think that is, and I would like to ask that also because it's tying into the customer experience also. We have to re-educate, I guess, the customers to some extent also on how they actually should behave now in terms of if you have a commerce platform, for example, I guess significant can chip in there. And everybody's talking about the Amazon-like experience, and we all understand what that means in terms of user experience. But let's be honest, manufacturers are not Amazon. That's not their core business model. So where should they differentiate in that customer experience? Do you see where I'm going with this? Like if they can't offer the Amazon, because Amazon is Amazon, what can they offer in the commerce platform that makes life easier for the customer?
I think.
Oh.
Shall I go? Yeah.
Go ahead, Matthias. I can join in.
No, you go ahead and start, and I'll fill in.
Okay.
Please.
No, data is great, but it's also good to do some more qualified discussions with customers to understand what their actually needs are. And we did that this spring, and to help us with our strategy moving forward. And one thing that we maybe not really anticipated was that in our industry, with our farmers, at least on the markets where we did this, there was more interest in getting access to information regarding aftermarket, regarding service, regarding parts, than it was to actually buy the parts online. So
the information portal was more important
for our customers, definitely. So we actually changed the focus slightly to focus more on that side than to go ahead and maybe create e-commerce or the possibility to place orders and to buy stuff online, which has a lot of other challenges with business models and so as well. So I think data-driven decisions are very important, but it's also important to verify those by talking to your target groups.
I can confirm this a little bit from some other customers also within farming, where they say that yes, we're really good at selling these parts online now, and we're happy with that. But as they did reviews also, they confirmed that what you're saying. They not only want to buy the part, they also want to get all kinds of other information related to the product they have in front of them. And it could be tips and tricks on how to use it more efficiently. It could be how to do the service operation. If you have a broken part, maybe you don't need a new part, you just need to do some little fixing. That is also important information, which brings the connection between the customer and the OEM much closer. You know where to go to find information, and maybe it doesn't lead to a sale of a part directly, but it comes a little bit further down the line because you know where to get the information. So I think this is an important aspect. It's not selling parts, it's selling the information, and then parts come along.
And I guess that ties into the value offering again, right?
Yes, and that's how to compete with Amazon, of course.
Yes.
Because Amazon won't do that.
No. So that would be the unique selling point in that aspect, would be the information, the warranties, anything that ties into the product specifications of the part and the machine itself, I guess, is that's the part of the sort of catalog that you can find online. Okay, and then we actually, I want to also touch upon the fact that we are, of course, in a post-pandemic, if you should trust some of our local governments sort of situation here, and you know, world is opening up, and as we touched upon in the beginning again, this might not have been a transition that was caused by the pandemic, but was definitely, you know, speeded up. One thing we see is that there are some business cases already showing their sort of unfortunate phase, that where you've done the transformation and maybe panicked into some digital initiatives that wasn't really thought through, because that was the only way to, you know, create some kind of competitive edge. What would you say now in terms of if people should go back to their desk and review their parts operation and how to digitize it properly going forward, and not throwing bad money or good money after bad money because you rushed the project? What would you say to them now? What should they look out for? Any pitfalls, any things that you believe is here to stay, that is really the drivers going forward?
I think Robin nailed it when he said, ask the end customer. You know, so before you make any more changes, ask them what they want and how they want to deal with their providers and suppliers. I mean, you know, clearly I bang the drum of digital customer experience, and it's very relevant for most of the industry sectors that we deal with, but it may not be for some industry sectors who might be a little bit technology agnostic, or not agnostic's the wrong word, but, you know, not quite as technology
savvy, maybe.
Savvy, that's right. That's the word I'm looking for. So yeah, I would support what he said. You know, ask the end customer how they want to deal with you going forward. I think we're moving into an era that is much more digitally focused, but you need to ask.
I think it's very relevant, and just to follow up, because I think that's a great point. Ask your customer, but also from an internal perspective, of course, you have some homework to do. Really start with a broader roadmap, understanding what the key priorities are, and maybe even discuss your roadmap with your most important customers, and really asking, hey, where should we prioritize? And I think what's positive for everyone on this call today, I guess, is that the importance of spare parts will just increase over time. If we're looking at business models like circular economy or whatever, it's all about uptime, it's all about availability. So in whatever form, spare parts will become more relevant. And I think it's important to understand the big picture, but then also to have quick wins that you can realize in a very short amount of time, also to keep your customers happy and to keep your people engaged and on board during this transformation process.
Yeah, and I can just add, I think, or one challenge that we have had the last 1.5 years, that is, we've produced a lot of digital material or digital content, or content that we could make available online, for example. And I think to look from the different target groups, if it's end customers, if it's service staff, if it's sales partners, whatever, how should they find and consume that content? And look it from that perspective. It's always, yeah, we got a question, we cannot travel there and educate them on this. Let's do a short video clip about it. Quite easy, quite efficient. But how should we make sure that the person needing that information at a certain point of time actually know where to find it, and that it even exists, maybe? So if we should backtrack, at least in our case, it's to step a bit back, not maybe focus so much on the content creation, but how the target groups can consume that content that has been produced for the last couple of years, which has increased a lot. So.
That's a very good aspect, actually. And I think that's a little bit my point to this question also, that we see a lot of things has been, you know, really boomed in the sense of we put a lot of effort and time into doing things, and now we actually have to make a point out of making sure the value gets out of those materials that we created, or business model changes, or whatever it might be, right? Because it's been costly, it's been time consuming, it's taken resources, and definitely has, you know, taken its toll on many organizations to do the shift, right? So in the end, we also have to make sure it aligns with the end goal, which is, of course, you know, increased revenue, profitability, and happy customers. So it all has to tie in together. With that said, I actually have to end the panel, but I will have some kind of final question. That is, of course, you all have this transparent, you know, technology supporting your companies that you can provide to the customers. And the parts, if nothing else, we know it has been challenged by, you know, global supply and demand, and, you know, things getting stuck out of China, and, you know, the inventory isn't what it's supposed to be. It's been a very fragile last couple of months where you haven't been able to service your customer properly. Maybe, what do you think will be the biggest learning point? Is it the time to outsource parts of your operation, automated, rely on third parties? I mean, of course, there's risk associated to having huge inventory or warehouse, but also control, which is a factor that many like. So where do you see this sort of business model changing in the future, if it changes, that is?
Shall I start on this one?
Of course.
I think if the one lesson has been learnt, and it was always there, but once again, it was kind of made really stark and really in people's faces, is building in the resilience in their supply chains, or in this case, service supply chains, has become something that every one of them now feels they have to do, or rather spend more time, you know, planning. It wasn't just you know, the pandemic. There's been many things here in Europe. You know, it's been things like the dreaded Brexit. It's things like a great big cargo ship gets stuck in the Suez Canal. It's all sorts of things, and they will continue to happen. But it's become a very stark, obvious thing that people really need to build in that flexibility and resilience, scalability in some cases, or scalability down, if that's also true as well, but flexibility in their service supply chains and resilience.
Okay, good. And everybody's nodding. So I'm going to take that as you all agree, and I will let that be the final words for this panel. So thank you everyone for joining. We have one final session left for the day, which is spare parts in the digital domain. And for the panels, you're welcome to turn off your cameras and mute yourself. I will start by sharing my screen again. And I had the opportunity to have this discussion with Tommi Kankainen, who at the time was a part of Fastems, but is now at Dimic, and he is walking us through the more technical aspects of running parts in the digital domain, actually. So I will hand it over to.
All right. Well, let's go forward. Actually, I will first shortly introduce myself. Who am I? So at the moment, my primary responsibility, in fact, is to take care of my baby girl, who is now a little bit more than 2 months old, and of course the rest of the family. And well, she's my third daughter, so there's actually quite a lot of taking care of, in fact. So I'm still for a while on paternal leave. I'm also a pretty active member of the Demolo Global company, which is a company building global remote teams of Generation G, JIT students for bringing in deep insights of the future trends for different types of industries. So that's actually quite interesting context that I'm working on at the moment. My previous assignments, and which is actually very much base for this presentation today, is that I used to work as a Chief Digital Officer and Vice President of Manufacturing Operations Management software business at Fastems Incorporated, which is the first, the leading manufacturer of especially complex flexible manufacturing systems